When my uncle passed, the family gathered expecting an inheritance, not revelations. His will contained letters, secrets, and truths that tore generations apart. Affairs, lies, hidden children, things that explained everything and changed everyone. The man we thought we knew had lived many lives. Some hated him, some pitied him, and others finally understood him. In the end, what he left behind wasn't wealth, it was truth. Hear this. They say you never truly know someone until they're gone. I used to think that was just something people said to comfort themselves at funerals, a pretty lie we tell to make peace with loss. I was wrong. My uncle's death didn't just take him from us. It revealed him to us. And what we found wasn't the man we thought we knew. It was a stranger who'd been hiding in plain sight for 67 years, carrying secrets that would burn through our family like wildfire. His will wasn't a gift. It was a confession. And by the time that lawyer finished reading, we understood that some inheritances aren't meant to comfort you. They're meant to free you, even if the truth destroys everything you thought you knew. Welcome to my Reddit diaries, where every story reveals the unseen battles within families. Don't forget to subscribe, and tell me in the comments, where in the world are you watching from? The rain came down in sheets the day we buried Uncle Richard. Not the gentle kind that whispers against windows, but the angry kind that drums on umbrellas and turns cemetery grass into mud. I stood there watching them lower his casket into the ground, and all I could think about were the summers the first spent at his lake house. The chess games on the porch. The way he taught me to fish at dawn when the water was still as glass. The stories he told about building his real estate empire from nothing, about taking risks and trusting your instincts. He was 67. Heart attack in his sleep. Quick, painless, the doctor said. No suffering. That's what everyone kept repeating, as if it mattered, as if the manner of death somehow made the loss easier to swallow. My mother stood beside me, Sarah, his younger sister. She hadn't stopped crying since we got the call 3 days ago. On my other side was Aunt Linda, his older sister, dry-eyed and composed in her black dress and pearls. She'd always been the practical one, the responsible one. Behind us, my cousin Marcus shifted from foot to foot, checking his phone even at the graveside. And there was Aunt Patricia, my Uncle Daniel's widow, standing apart from the rest of us like she didn't quite belong. Uncle Richard had never married. No children, no long-term partners that anyone knew about. Just his work, his properties, and his family gatherings where he played the role of the successful bachelor uncle with easy charm. We all loved him. Or we thought we did. After the service, we gathered at his estate. The Victorian mansion on Elm Street that he'd restored himself, every detail perfect, every room a testament to his taste and his money. The house was worth millions. Hell, his entire portfolio was estimated somewhere between $8 and $12 million. I'd heard Marcus whispering about it to his mother in the parking lot of the funeral home. People filled the rooms, eating catered food, speaking in hushed tones, sharing memories. But there was an undercurrent, a tension that hummed beneath the polite conversation. Everyone was thinking about the will. About what came next. About who got what. Around 3 o'clock, Mr. Holloway arrived. Richard's attorney, a thin man in his 60s with silver hair and wire-rimmed glasses. He set his briefcase down in the foyer and looked around at the gathered family with an expression I couldn't quite read. Pity maybe. Or apprehension. If the immediate family could please join me in Mr. Harrington's study, he said quietly. It's time to review the will. We filed in one by one. The study was exactly as I remembered it. Dark wood paneling, floor-to-ceiling bookshelves, the massive desk where Uncle Richard used to sit and review contracts. The chessboard was still set up on the side table, frozen mid-game from the last time we'd played together 2 months ago. I'd been winning. Aunt Linda sat in the leather chair closest to the desk, her posture perfect, hands folded in her lap. Marcus slouched beside her, fidgeting. My mother took a seat near the window, staring out at the rain-soaked garden. Patricia stood near the door like she might bolt at any moment. And I leaned against the bookshelf, arms crossed, trying to ignore the knot forming in my stomach. Mr. Holloway opened his briefcase and pulled out a thick folder. Then he pulled out something else. A leather-bound journal and several sealed envelopes, each with a name written across the front in Richard's distinctive handwriting. Before we begin, Mr. Holloway said, setting the envelopes on the desk, I need to explain something. This is not a standard will reading. Mr. Harrington left very specific instructions about how this process was to be conducted. Linda leaned forward. What kind of instructions? He left letters. Personal letters for each of you. And he stipulated that these letters must be read aloud, in the order he specified, before any discussion of the estate distribution can take place. The room went still. My mother's head turned from the window. Marcus sat up straighter. Patricia's hand went to her throat. Read aloud. Linda's voice was sharp. You mean in front of everyone? That was his explicit instruction, yes. That's absurd, Marcus said. Private letters should be private. Mr. Holloway adjusted his glasses. If anyone refuses to participate, or if anyone leaves before all letters have been read, they forfeit their entire inheritance. Those were his terms. Silence. Heavy and suffocating. I felt something cold crawl up my spine. Uncle Richard had always been deliberate, always thought 10 steps ahead. This wasn't arbitrary. This was planned. But what could possibly be in these letters that required an audience? How many letters are there? My mother asked softly. 7. Mr. Holloway touched each envelope. And they must be read in order. Linda stood abruptly. This is manipulation. Even dead, he's controlling us. You're free to leave, Mrs. Castellano, Mr. Holloway said calmly. But if you do, you'll receive nothing from the estate. She stood there, trembling with something between rage and fear, then slowly sat back down. Fine. Read them. Mr. Holloway picked up the first envelope. This one is addressed to Linda Castellano. I watched my aunt's face go pale as the attorney broke the seal and unfolded the pages inside. He cleared his throat and began to read. Linda, by the time you read this, I'll be gone, and maybe that will make this easier to say. Or maybe it won't matter at all. 40 years ago, you were engaged to James Morrison. You were so happy, so sure of your future. And then he broke it off suddenly, no explanation, no closure. You blamed yourself. You spent years in therapy trying to understand what you'd done wrong. Linda's hands gripped the armrests of her chair. Her knuckles went white. You did nothing wrong, Linda. James didn't leave you because of anything you lacked. He left because of me. We had an affair. It lasted 6 months. I pursued him deliberately, recklessly, driven by something I didn't understand about myself and refused to acknowledge. He loved you, Linda. He truly did. But I seduced him to prove something to myself, to feel something I'd been running from my whole life. When he finally ended it with me, when he tried to go back to you, the guilt consumed him. He couldn't face you knowing what he'd done. So he ran. And I let him. I let you suffer for 4 decades believing you weren't enough, when the truth is, I destroyed your happiness because I was too much of a coward to face my own. Mr. Holloway paused. Linda sat frozen, her face drained of all color. Her mouth opened but no sound came out. I'm sorry, Linda. I know that means nothing now. But you deserved the truth 40 years ago, and I was too selfish to give it to you. You deserved a life, a marriage, children, happiness. I took that from you. Not because you failed, but because I did. The letter ended. The silence that followed was absolute. Then Linda stood, her chair scraping against the hardwood floor. Her whole body shook. He's dead, she whispered. He's dead and he's still destroying me. Mom, Marcus started to rise. No. She held up a hand. Don't. Just don't. She walked to the window, pressed her forehead against the glass, and let out a sound somewhere between a laugh and a sob. 40 years. 40 years I thought it was me. 40 years of wondering what was wrong with me, why I couldn't keep him, why I wasn't enough. And it was a lie. All of it. A lie. My mother stood and moved toward her sister, but Linda shook her head violently. Don't touch me. Don't any of you touch me. Mrs. Castellano, Mr. Holloway said gently, there are 6 more letters. If you leave now. Oh, I'm not leaving. Linda turned from the window, and her face was terrible to look at. Decades of pain and confusion suddenly crystallizing into understanding and rage. I'm not going anywhere. I want to hear every single word. I want to know every lie he told, every life he ruined. Read the next one. Mr. Holloway hesitated, then picked up the second envelope. This one was thicker. He read the name on the front. This letter is addressed to Patricia Harrington. Patricia, who had been silent this entire time, went rigid. No. Patricia, my mother said softly. I don't want to know. Please. Daniel's been dead for 15 years. Please don't make me. Marcus crossed the room and put his hand on her shoulder. None of us want to know, Aunt Patricia. But we're here anyway. Whatever it is, we'll hear it together. She closed her eyes, tears streaming down her face, and nodded once. Mr. Holloway broke the seal. He began to read. Patricia, by the time you read this, you'll hate me. You probably already do, though you've been too kind to show it. You deserve to know why Daniel really died that night. The family believes it was an accident. A drunk driving crash, grief over a failed business deal, a moment of poor judgment. But Daniel wasn't grieving a business failure. He was grieving a betrayal. Mine. Patricia's hand flew to her mouth. 15 years ago, Daniel discovered something about me. Something I'd hidden from everyone, something I was desperate to keep secret. He found out that I'd been having an affair with Marcus. The room exploded. Marcus stumbled backward like he'd been struck. My mother gasped. Linda turned from the window, eyes wide. And Patricia collapsed into the nearest chair, shaking her head over and over. Marcus was 19 when it started. I was 52. It lasted 2 years. I told myself it was love, that age didn't matter, that we understood each other. But the truth is I was a predator. I used my position, my influence, my role in this family to manipulate a confused young man who was struggling with his own identity. Your husband found out. He came to my house the night he died. We fought. He threatened to expose me, to destroy me, to report me to the police. And I let him believe that no one would believe him, that it would destroy Marcus more than it would destroy me. I gave him a bottle of whiskey. I told him to go home and sleep it off, that we'd talk when he was sober. He left my house drunk and angry, and 3 hours later, he was dead. Mr. Holloway's voice continued reading, but I couldn't hear it anymore over the ringing in my ears. I stared at Marcus, my cousin, who stood frozen in the center of the room, his face ashen, his eyes unfocused. Patricia was sobbing now, her whole body convulsing. My mother had her hand over her mouth, tears streaming down her face. Linda looked like she might be sick. And I felt the world tilting beneath me, every memory of Uncle Richard shifting, reshaping, transforming into something unrecognizable. The letter concluded. Patricia couldn't speak. She just sat there, drowning in 15 years of misdirected grief. Is it true? My mother finally asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Marcus, is it true? Marcus didn't move. Didn't blink. When he finally spoke, his voice was hollow. I was a kid. I was 19. I was confused about everything. About who I was, about what I wanted. And he was there. He made me feel like I mattered, like someone finally understood me. I didn't know about Uncle Daniel. I swear I didn't know he went there that night. I didn't know any of this. You killed my husband. Patricia's voice was raw, shredded. Both of you killed him. There are 5 more letters, Mr. Holloway said quietly. And I have additional information regarding Mr. Harrington's instructions. What additional information? Linda demanded. Mr. Harrington prepared a full confession to be delivered to the police, sealed until today. It details his relationship with Marcus and his role in Daniel Harrington's death. The confession is scheduled to be opened and delivered to the authorities in 48 hours, unless this family unanimously agrees to keep it sealed. The implications hit like a physical blow. Uncle Richard was giving us a choice. Expose him posthumously, let the truth destroy his legacy and potentially implicate Marcus, or protect the family name and bury the truth forever. But he wasn't done. There were 5 more letters. 5 more secrets waiting to detonate. Mr. Holloway picked up the 3rd envelope, and I saw the name written across it in Richard's handwriting. Sarah Mitchell. My mother's name. My mother, who had loved her brother unconditionally, who had grieved him honestly. What could he possibly have to confess to her? She stood slowly, walked to the desk, and took the envelope from Mr. Holloway's hands. I'll read it myself. She opened it. Her eyes moved across the page. And then her knees buckled. I caught her before she fell. Mom, what is it? What does it say? She looked up at me with eyes full of tears and something else. Something like wonder and devastation mixed together. He's your father. The words hung in the air. 3 words that unmade my entire life. What? Richard, she whispered. Richard is your father. And that's when everything I thought I knew about myself shattered into pieces I'd never be able to put back together. I don't remember leaving the study. One moment I was standing there, holding my mother as she told me my entire identity was a lie, and the next I was in my car, driving through the rain with no destination in mind. My hands gripped the steering wheel so hard my knuckles ached. Every thought that tried to form shattered before it could complete. Uncle Richard was my father. The man who taught me to play chess, who gave me advice about college and careers, who watched me grow up from a careful distance, knew the entire time that I was his son. And he said nothing. 28 years of nothing. I ended up at the lake house. His lake house. The place where we'd spent those summers, where he'd told me stories about his life, where he'd shaped who I became without ever claiming the right to do so. I sat in the driveway for 20 minutes before I could make myself go inside. The key was where it always was, under the 3rd stone on the left side of the porch. I let myself in and stood in the silence. Everything was exactly as I remembered. The leather couch by the fireplace. The photographs on the mantel, most of them including me at various ages. Me at 10, holding up a fish. Me at 16, standing on the dock. Me at 25, graduating college. How many times had I looked at those photos and never questioned why I was the only nephew featured so prominently? How had I been so blind? My phone rang. Mr. Holloway. I almost didn't answer. I'm not coming back, I said when I picked up. I understand. But there's something you need to know. Your uncle left a letter specifically for you. He requested it be given to you privately, not read in front of the family. I think you need to read it now. I don't want to read anything from him right now. I know, but he anticipated that. He told me if you refused, I was to tell you this. The last 2 letters will explain everything, and you deserve to understand before you decide whether to hate him. I closed my eyes. Even dead, he was still moving pieces on the chessboard, still thinking 10 steps ahead. Fine. Read it to me. He specified you needed to read it yourself. I'm sending it to your email now. The call ended. I pulled out my laptop, waited for the email to load, and opened the attachment. The letter began with 2 words that made my chest tighten. Son. Because that's what you are. Not my nephew. My son. And I'm a coward for never saying it to your face. I watched you grow up, watched you become everything I never could be. Honest. You asked me once why I never married, never had kids of my own. I told you I was married to my work. That was a lie. The truth is, I was terrified of being a father because I knew I'd fail, just like I failed at everything else that mattered. Your mother and I, we had one night together 29 years ago. She was trapped in a marriage with a man who hurt her, and I helped her escape. We were both grieving, both broken, and for one night we weren't alone. I'm not proud of it. I'm not ashamed of it either. It was the most honest moment of my entire life. And it gave her you. She begged me to stay away, to let her husband believe you were his so you could have a normal life. I agreed because I was relieved. I wasn't ready to be a father. I wasn't ready to be anything real. But I watched you from a distance. Every birthday, every graduation, every summer at the lake house when Sarah would bring you to visit. I saw myself in you, the parts of me that could have been good if I'd had the courage to try. I'm destroying everything with this will. I know that. But I need you to understand why. This family has been built on secrets for generations. Everyone hiding, everyone pretending, everyone sacrificing their truth to maintain the illusion of normalcy. I hid who I was my entire life. I hurt people because I was too afraid to be honest. And I watched you grow up in the shadow of those same lies. You're going to hate me. You should. But don't hate the truth. The truth is all I have left to give you. The last 2 letters will break what's left of this family. One of them introduces someone none of you knew existed. The other offers a choice that will determine whether my legacy is destruction or something else. I'm sorry I couldn't be your father in life. I'm sorry I let you call me uncle for 28 years. But I'm not sorry you exist. You're the only good thing I ever created. The letter ended there. I sat staring at the screen until my eyes burned. Then I closed the laptop and called my mother. Where are you? She asked immediately. The lake house. I needed to get out of there. I'm so sorry. I should have told you years ago. I wanted to, so many times, but I was afraid. Your father, the man you grew up calling Dad, he never knew. He died believing you were his, and I thought that was kinder than the truth. Was he good to you? I asked. My real father. The man I called Dad. Was he good to you before he died? She was quiet for a long moment. No. He wasn't. He was angry and controlling and sometimes violent. Richard helped me leave him when you were 2. We told everyone it was a separation, then a divorce. Your dad, the man you remember, that was after he got sober, after years of therapy. He changed. He became the father you deserved. But in the beginning, no. He wasn't good to me. So Richard saved you. In his own ways. But that doesn't erase what he did to everyone else. Mom, there are 2 more letters. Did they read them after I left? No. Mr. Holloway said we needed to wait for you. Patricia left. She couldn't take any more. Marcus is still here but he hasn't spoken. Linda is demanding we open the rest of the letters tonight. She says she needs to know everything before she can even think about forgiving him. I don't know if I can come back there. You don't have to. Whatever you decide, I support you. But I knew I had to go back. Not for Richard. Not even for the inheritance. But because whatever was in those last 2 letters, it was meant for all of us to hear together. I drove back through the rain. It was dark now, nearly 8 o'clock. The house was still lit up, warm light spilling from every window. When I walked back into the study, everyone turned to look at me. Linda. Marcus, who sat in the corner with his head in his hands. My mother, who stood when she saw me. And Mr. Holloway, still patient, still waiting. I'm sorry, I said to no one in particular. I needed time. We all need time, Linda replied. Her voice was hollow, exhausted. But Richard didn't give us that luxury, did he? So let's finish this. Let's hear the rest of his confessions and be done with it. Mr. Holloway nodded and picked up the 6th envelope. It was addressed to Elena Harrington. A name I'd never heard before. A name that didn't belong to anyone in our family. I should mention, Mr. Holloway said carefully, that Miss Harrington arrived about an hour ago. She's waiting in the living room. Mr. Richard Harrington requested that this letter be read in her presence and yours. Who the hell is Elena Harrington? Marcus asked, the first words he'd spoken in hours. Perhaps we should invite her in and find out, Mr. Holloway suggested. He opened the study door and gestured to someone in the hallway. A woman stepped inside. She was maybe late 30s, professionally dressed, with dark hair pulled back in a neat bun. And she had Richard's eyes. Those same gray eyes I saw in the mirror every morning. She looked at each of us in turn, then settled her gaze on me. I'm Elena, she said quietly. Richard Harrington was my father. The room went silent. My mother's hand found mine and squeezed. That's impossible, Linda said. Richard never had children. He did. Elena's voice was steady, composed. He had me. 38 years ago, with a woman named Carmen Torres. He gave my mother money for an abortion. She kept the baby and never contacted him again. I grew up believing my father was dead. 2 years ago, I hired a private investigator. I found him. We met. We talked. And he asked me not to contact any of you until after his death. He said you needed to understand him before you could understand me. Jesus Christ, Marcus whispered. How many more? Mr. Holloway held up the envelope. Ms. Harrington, your father left this for you. Elena took it, opened it with steady hands, and read silently for a moment. Then she looked up at us. He wants me to read it aloud. Is that okay with all of you? No one objected. What was one more secret at this point? Elena's voice filled the room, reading her father's words. He apologized for abandoning her. He explained his fear, his cowardice, his inability to face responsibility. He left her the lake house and a trust fund. But more than that, he told her she was proof that he'd been capable of one good thing in his youth, even if he'd run from it. When she finished, she folded the letter carefully and looked directly at me. He wrote about you too. In his letters to me over the past 2 years. He said he had a son who didn't know the truth. He said you were siblings. Half-siblings. I couldn't speak. Couldn't process. I had a sister. A sister I'd never known existed. There's one more letter, Mr. Holloway said quietly. It's addressed to the family. All of you. He opened it and began to read Richard's final words. His full confession about who he was, what he'd hidden, why he'd hurt so many people. He was a gay man in a time and place where that meant losing everything. So he built walls made of money and lies and other people's pain. He took responsibility for Daniel's death, for destroying Linda's future, for what he'd done to Marcus. He acknowledged Elena's existence and his failure as her father. He confessed that I was his son. And then came the final stipulation. We could take the inheritance and divide it according to his will. Or we could unanimously agree to donate everything to an LGBTQ youth foundation he'd established in secret 5 years ago. The choice had to be unanimous. The lawyer set down the letter and looked at each of us. You have until tomorrow morning to decide. No one moved. No one spoke. The weight of Richard's entire life, all his secrets and lies and pain, sat heavy in that room. And somehow, we had to decide what to do with it. Nobody slept that night. We sat in that study until dawn broke through the windows, each of us wrestling with our own demons, our own pain, our own version of Richard Harrington. The man we thought we knew had been a ghost. What we were left with was the truth, and the truth was ugly and complicated and somehow still human. Around 6 in the morning, Linda finally broke the silence. I want to say something before we vote. She looked at each of us in turn. I spent 40 years hating myself because of what Richard did. 40 years believing I wasn't enough, that something was fundamentally broken inside me. I went through therapy, antidepressants, countless failed relationships because I couldn't trust anyone after James left. And now I know it was never about me. It was about him. About Richard's cowardice. She paused, her hands trembling slightly. I should hate him more now. I should want to take every penny and burn it just to spite his memory. But I'm exhausted. I've carried this weight for 4 decades, and I don't want to carry it anymore. If donating his money means that some kid who's hiding who they are gets help, if it means one less person has to live the way Richard lived, then maybe something good can come from all this pain. I vote to donate. For votes. All eyes turned to me. The decision was mine. The son who'd learned his entire identity was built on a lie. The nephew who'd become a son overnight. The brother who'd gained a sister in the same breath he lost an uncle. I thought about those summers at the lake house. The chess games where Richard taught me to think 3 moves ahead. The conversations about life and risk and courage. The way he looked at me sometimes with an expression I'd never understood until now. Pride mixed with regret. Love mixed with shame. Before I vote, I said slowly, I need to say something to each of you. I turned to Linda first. Aunt Linda, you deserved better. You deserved the truth 40 years ago. You deserved a life that wasn't haunted by someone else's cowardice. I'm sorry Richard stole that from you. I'm sorry you had to wait this long to understand it wasn't your fault. To Marcus, what happened to you wasn't love. It was abuse. You were a kid. You deserved protection, not manipulation. I hope you find a way to heal from this. I hope you find a way to forgive yourself for something that was never your fault to begin with. To my mother, Mom, thank you. For protecting me. For raising me. For being both parents when you had to be. For carrying this secret because you thought it would give me a better life. You were right. The father I grew up with, after he got sober, he was good to me. You gave me that by keeping the secret. I understand why you did it now. To Elena, I don't know you yet, but I want to. Not because we share DNA, but because you came here looking for family. That took courage. And I think we could all use a little more courage right now. I looked down at my hands, gathering my thoughts. Richard wasn't a good man. But he wasn't entirely evil either. He was human. Deeply flawed, capable of terrible harm, but also capable of moments of genuine care. He helped my mother when she needed it. He gave me summers that shaped who I became. He connected with Elena at the end, tried to make amends in the only way he knew how. And he set up this foundation knowing it might be the only good thing his life produced. I met Mr. Holloway's eyes. I vote to donate all of it. Let his money help kids who are where he was, who are where Marcus was. Let it create spaces where people don't have to hide. Let it do the work Richard was too broken to do himself. That's the only inheritance worth keeping. Mr. Holloway nodded slowly. Then it's unanimous. The estate, in its entirety, will be transferred to the Richard D. Harrington Center for Truth and Belonging. I'll begin processing the paperwork immediately. We sat there for a moment longer, letting it sink in. We'd just given away millions of dollars. And somehow, it felt like freedom. Patricia never came back. We learned later that she'd checked into a hotel and flew home the next morning. But 3 weeks after the reading, a check arrived at Mr. Holloway's office. Daniel's life insurance payout, made out to the foundation. Her note was brief, for the kids who need a better example than any of us had. 6 months passed. The foundation opened its doors in the spring. I attended the ribbon cutting with my mother, Linda, Marcus, and Elena. The building was modern, welcoming, filled with light. Inside were counselors, support groups, resources for LGBTQ youth and their families. Richard's name was on a plaque by the entrance, for those brave enough to live honestly. I visited his grave afterward. Just me this time. I stood there looking at his headstone and tried to figure out what to say to a father I'd never gotten to call father. You were a coward, I said finally. You hurt people. You destroyed lives because you were too afraid to live your own honestly. You were a predator to Marcus. You ruined Linda's chance at happiness. You abandoned Elena. You hid from me for 28 years. The wind moved through the trees overhead. But you also saved my mother. You gave me those summers that taught me how to think, how to question, how to see 10 steps ahead. And in the end, you did something you never managed in life. You told the truth. You gave us permission to stop hiding. You freed us from the same walls that imprisoned you. I knelt down and touched the cold stone. I'm not sure I forgive you. I'm not sure forgiveness is even mine to give. But I understand you now. And maybe that's enough. My phone buzzed. A text from Elena. Dinner tonight? I want you to meet someone. Her name's Sophia. I think I'm ready to introduce her to the family. I smiled and typed back, we'll be there. Family. Not the one we'd grown up pretending to be. Not the perfect image we'd maintained for appearances. But something real. Something honest. Something built on truth instead of secrets. Richard's will didn't shatter our family. It freed us. It gave us permission to be broken and human and real with each other. To stop performing and start living. What he left behind wasn't wealth. It was a choice. And we chose honesty. We chose healing. We chose each other, scars and all. That's the real inheritance. Not what he gave us, but what we decided to build from the ruins. Some legacies are built on lies. Ours would be built on truth. And that truth, painful as it was, turned out to be worth more than any fortune he could have left behind. I walked away from the cemetery toward my car. Elena was waiting there, leaning against the hood. My sister. My family. My future. Ready? She asked. Yeah, I said. I'm ready. We drove toward whatever came next, carrying the weight of Richard's truth but no longer crushed by his lies. Free, finally, to write our own story. The one he never had the courage to write for himself. Look, I know that was heavy. Family secrets always are. If you've got a story about inheritance drama, hidden truths, or family betrayals that changed everything, drop it in the comments. I read them all. And hey, if you made it this far through this 3-part saga, hit that subscribe button. More stories like this coming your way. Real people, real pain, real truth. That's what we do here at my Reddit Diaries. Where are you watching from? Let me know below. See you soon.